Lesson 4.6 is going to be, we're learning all about the slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is probably the most common form that an equation needs to be in all of algebra. It's how we graph lines, it's how we can tell our slope, how we can tell our y-intercept, okay? And this is the equation for slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. Now, if you remember, we've already been working with this. M is the letter that always stands for slope. B is the letter that stands for y-intercept. Now, that's probably new for you, okay? B is the letter that stands for y-intercept. Now, this is the part that a lot of people have problems on, is they go, okay, y is a y-intercept. No, it is actually not. When you have an equation in slope-intercept form, you will always have y equals, we'll have a number here, 2x plus 6. Okay, this is a good example. X and y are always x and y. They're never going to be a number. So our m is always in front of the x, but it never includes x. So if I were to say, tell me the slope of this equation, you would say m equals 2, not m equals 2x. That would be wrong. Okay, it's only m equals 2. And then if I said, what's the y-intercept? You would say b equals 6. Now, if you remember, y-intercept, okay, we just got finished doing it. Our y-intercept is where our line crosses the y-axis. So if my y-intercept is 6, that means my line is going to cross my y-axis at positive 6, okay? So, slope-intercept form includes two major things, slope and y-intercept. Slope is always represented with m and never includes the letter x, and b represents the y-intercept. So what they have is they've given me lots of different equations on this one, and they want me to identify what's the slope and what's the y-intercept, okay? So let's write the equation for slope-intercept because you have to memorize this. Y equals mx plus b. I know that m is my slope and b is my y-intercept. Okay, so look at this equation. Y equals, what is m in this equation? 3. What is my y-intercept? 4. So I've got y equals mx plus b. So I know that m is 3 and b is 4. Okay? And I just use m and b because those letters I know represent slope and they represent y-intercept. I don't need to write slope equals 3. B or y-intercept equals 4. All right? What is the slope of this equation? M equals 1/2. You say, hold on a second, it's a fraction. Remember, slope is rise over run. So it's perfect that it's a fraction. And what is my y-intercept? It is 6. Okay? Now, what is this number here in front of x that I don't see but I know is there? A 1. So I know that m is equal to 1 and b is equal to 10. Now, look at this next problem. Both of these are being divided by 3. All right? So, what is 2 divided by 3? Well, it's just 2 over 3. And then what is my b? What's 9 divided by 3? 3. So that's how I find the slope and y-intercept. Now let's look at this next equation here. This one's different. Y equals mx plus b is my slope-intercept form. Where is my x? Where is my m? This is not my m because m is always attached to x. So you'll never find your m without an x right underneath it, okay? If you ever see a number by itself, just like we have here, this 5, that's always your y-intercept. When there is no x at all, m is equal to 0, and my y-intercept is 5. Okay, so that means I'm going to have a line that goes through my y-axis at 5. So if like this was my graph here, this is my x-axis, this is my y-axis, this is the point of 5. So we would have a horizontal line that goes directly through the y-axis at 5. Okay, now look at this last one, because this is probably the most common that you're going to see here. Is this equation in y equals mx plus b form? No. in order for it to be in y equals mx plus b form, this y has got to be by itself. Is y by itself in this equation? No. So I've got to put it by itself. So I need to move the 2x first, which means I need to subtract 2x. I don't want to divide by 2 because I want to move the whole thing. Negative 2x plus 12. Now I need to divide everything by 6. And I'm going to get y equals, let's reduce this fraction. What's negative 2 over 6? Negative 1/3 x plus 2. Now let's find what my m and my b is, okay? My m is negative 1/3 and my b is 2. All right, that's how we would find our slope and y-intercept of each of these equations. So in example 2, now we're getting into actually graphing them. First of all, let's write our equation for slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. So I've got the equation, y equals 2x plus 5. So I know I've got y equals mx plus b. On this next one, I've got y equals negative 3x plus 2. Let's label our slope and y-intercept because it's always easiest if I do that. So I know that m is equal to 2. Well, let's put this, slope is always rise over run. Let's put it in fraction form so it's easier to graph. 2 over 1. And then my y-intercept is 5. Okay, let's do the same thing to the next one before we graph it. Let's just get all this out of the way. What is my slope in this equation? Negative 3, and I'm going to write it over 1. And then what is my y-intercept? It is 2. Okay? Now, this is how you graph. In order to graph, all you need to know is the slope and y-intercept. You need to know nothing else. Okay, so I'm going to change to my graph paper here. You should have a piece of graph paper out. All right? And what we're going to do is we're going to graph both of these lines on the same graph. So that we don't have to do too many. I'm just getting my graph all set up here. Okay, whenever you graph slope-intercept form, there's always some rules you follow. You always graph the y-intercept first. What is my y-intercept in this first equation? 5. So all I've got to do, remember the y-intercept is just where that line crosses the y-axis. So it's going to be 5. So I go to 5 on my y-axis. That's my y-intercept. Now, you use your slope. Remember, slope is rise over run. So the rise tells me, if this is my rise, this is my run. When I have a positive rise, that means I go up 2. So I'm going to go from 5 to 6, 6 to 7, and then I have a positive run, so I'm going to go towards the positive side of the x-axis, which is right here. I would not go to the left because these are all negative values. Okay? And now I can just draw my line through them. Alright, that's my first line. And that's exactly how you would graph in slope-intercept form. So let's do the same thing but for this next one. Okay? First of all, you remember, you always graph the y-intercept first. And I see the b as my y-intercept, and that's 2. So I'm going to go to 2 on my x-axis. Always remember it's the x-axis. Put my point, and then I'm going to use the slope, which is rise over run, to tell me where I put my next point. So if this is rise over run, okay, negative 3, that means I have to go down 3. Whenever you have a negative number, you go down. Whenever you have a positive, you go up. So I go down 1, 2, 3, and I should be somewhere right here. And then my run is a positive 1, so I've got to go towards the positive side on the x-axis. So down 3 over 1. All right, and then I would just graph my line. And this is how you would graph, again, using slope-intercept form. Okay, so now they want me to put both of those pieces together, what I did in example 1 and what I did in example 2. So I need to write the equation in slope-intercept form first, because I cannot graph it unless it is in slope-intercept form, and then I am going to graph the line, okay? So slope-intercept form means y equals mx plus b. That means I need to get this y by itself. So I add x to both sides. Now, can I add these two terms together? Nope, because they're not like terms. So I have 2y equals 1x plus 6. And I put that 1 in front of x because it'll be easier for me to see in just a second. Then I've got to divide everything by 2. And I get y is equal to 1/2 x plus 3. Okay? What is my slope of this equation? 1/2. What is my y-intercept? 3. What should I graph first? The y-intercept. Always, always, always graph the y-intercept first. Then use that point and use the point that you have, the y-intercept, so 3, and I would use my slope to find the next point. Okay, let's go ahead while we're at it and put all of these in y equals mx plus b form. So I would add x to both sides, and I'd get 2y equals 1x minus 2, and I divide everything by 2. And I get y is equal to 1/2 x minus 1. All right, let's write our m and b. M is 1/2, b is -1. What would I graph first? The b, the y-intercept. Okay, and lastly, I'm going to subtract x this time first. And then I've got 2y is equal to -1x, I'm sorry, plus 4. Then I divide by 2 everywhere. And I get y is equal to -1/2 x plus 2. My m is -1/2, and my b is 2. Again, you want to graph that y-intercept first. All right, so let's graph each of these equations. Now I'm going to erase all this work here. And I am going to graph all of these lines on one graph. Just want to set this graph up. And I know it doesn't have to be very big because I look at my y-intercepts and they're 3, -1, and 2. So I know it's not going to be a huge graph. Okay, so remember, like I said, you always graph your y-intercept first. So with this first equation here, I'm going to do this one in orange. I'm going to go to the 3 on the y-axis. So here's my 3 on the y-axis. Then, remember, I don't go back to the origin, I don't go to 0. I'm going to use my slope, which is rise over run, 1 over 2. I'm going to go up 1, because that's a positive 1, over to the positive side, 2. Okay, draw your line through it. And you always want to make sure your line extends through the dots. Don't stop it. Don't just connect the dots there, okay? Let's do this next one. Let's do the next one in blue, all right? So I want to graph my y-intercept first. This time my y-intercept is -1. That means I need to go to the y-axis. to negative 1, and then my slope is up 1 over 2, because rise over run, positive 1 over to the positive 2 side on the x-intercept. And then lastly, let's graph the last equation. Do this one in purple, okay? And I've got 2 is my y-intercept, so I go to 2 on the y-axis. And then this time my slope is negative 1 over 2. So that negative 1 tells me I have to go down 1 and then still over to the positive side 2. Okay, look at how much my line is different compared to the others just because of that negative 1 rise. Okay, so that's how we would graph using slope-intercept form. Now, there's one other type of problem that I want to go over, which are parallel lines. Parallel lines have the exact same slope. So, okay, do I need to graph these lines in order to find out if they're parallel? No. It is much simpler than that. All you got to do is put it in y equals mx plus b form. If they have the same m, then they're parallel. If their slope is the same, then they're parallel. So let's put each of these equations in slope-intercept form. First of all, I know it needs to be y equals mx plus b, so I've got to get y by itself. So I divide everything by 3. And I get y equals, what's 9 over 3? 3x minus 5 over 3. Okay, so what is my m in this equation? Let's go ahead and write it. M is equal to 3. Or you could write 3 over 1, doesn't matter. Okay, let's do the next one. I need to get y by itself, so first I need to move the 2x because it's still over there. And I've got negative 6y equals negative 2x minus 5. And I'm going to divide everything by negative 6. And I get y is equal to 1/3 x plus 5 over 6. Now I know that's positive because there's 2 negatives. So what is the m in this equation? 1/3. So are these two lines parallel? Nope, they are not. So let's keep going to see if the third one's going to be parallel with either one of these. I subtract 12x first, and I get 4y is equal to negative 12x plus 1. Then I divide by 4 on everything, and I get y is equal to negative 3x plus 1/4. Okay? What is the slope of this equation? Negative 3. Are any of these lines parallel? No, they are not. So actually none of them are. Now, if this first equation would have had a slope of negative 3, then this one and this one would have been parallel. Or if the bottom one would have had a slope of positive 3, then the top and the bottom. So in order to be parallel, they have to have the same slope. Okay? So, some takeaway points from this lesson that you need to know. Okay, let me just change this really quick. You have to know how to write an equation in slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. You have to know this. You have to be able to write this in slope-intercept form. Any type of equation that they give you, you have to be able to write it in slope-intercept form. You need to know that for slope-intercept form, the most important thing is slope, which is m, and y-intercept, which is b. You have to be able to pick these out. Okay, and then parallel lines have the same slope. Which means they just have the exact same number in front of x. Okay, whenever you graph a line using y equals mx plus b form, you plot b first, always, or your y-intercept. So graphing, you plot b first, and then use slope to find the next point. Okay, all right, so that's how you would take y equals mx plus b form or slope-intercept form and use it to graph a line.